That. Good evening. I'd like to direct everyone to their seats. We're going to get started with this evening's debate. My name is Mark Kleinschmidt, and I have the distinct privilege and pleasure of being the CEO and president of the Anne Arundel Chamber of Commerce. And I'd like to welcome you all here this evening for the debate for the office of County Executive. It has been a challenging 4 years. We are fortunately putting COVID in the rearview mirror and getting back to normal. This is a great opportunity for all of us to gather in person to talk about issues that are going to affect the future of our county. And we have two outstanding candidates that will engage in a debate this evening. Before we get started, wanted to extend some thanks. And first of all, I want to thank our host here this evening, Maryland Hall, where arts are for all. This is a great venue, and I want to thank Jackie Coleman, the executive director here, for working with us to make tonight happen, and Dennis Coughlin, taking care of all the many logistics tonight. Maryland Hall is a nonpartisan organization, and I just wanted me to share with you that someone outside was kind of flashing a defund the police banner out there, and so that is not a position for Maryland Hall. They wanted me to share that with you. And I'd also like to thank the Annapolis police who are here with us this evening. Also, thanks go out to our partner for this evening, the Capital Gazette. We are great to have a great local newspaper such as the Capital here. It's been around for a long time, and they've done a great job, and you'll get to meet a couple folks from the Capitol shortly. I'd like to thank our panelists who will be introduced in a moment, and also like to thank our candidates. You know, it takes a lot of dedication, commitment, and courage to run for elected office. Both Jessica Haire and Steuart Pittman are dedicated public servants already serving in office, and we'd like to thank them for their service and their willingness to run for this very important office. But most of all, I'd like to thank you, the attendees, who are also the voters, who are going to make the ultimate decision of who the next county executive will be. And from the Chamber of Commerce viewpoint, the county executive is the CEO, runs a big operation, a $2 billion company, if you will, with over 3,500 employees that provide the vital services and infrastructure that we depend on, and in many cases take for granted every day. So the Chamber is very pleased to be here tonight to help sponsor this debate. Just for those of you who know, we are a nonprofit membership organization, a nonpartisan organization. We have about 450 businesses that are members of, and nonprofit organizations that are members of the Chamber, and they represent small and large corporations, small businesses, large corporations, which really reflects all of Anne Arundel County. So we believe it's important to provide information to our members and to the general public, and that's why we're so happy to work with the Capitol to make this debate possible this evening. It is being streamed live, so a lot of folks who aren't here this evening have the opportunity to see that, so we're pleased to do that. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce our moderator for the evening, Jay Judge, who is the editor of the Capital Gazette. And Jay will go over the ground rules, introduce the panel, and then the candidates. So thank you very much. We look forward to a great debate this evening.
First, let me just say thank you to Mark. Mark came to us and to introduce the idea of joining together and doing this debate. And it was a great decision. I really am proud to be part of this debate and to work with the chamber. They did a great job organizing this, working with us. Just a round of applause for Mark and the chamber. So, as he said, I'm Jay Judge. I'm the editor of the Capitol. I want to welcome you all here. It's such a great event. I have to say I was here 4 years ago for this event, and it was inspiring to see the commitment and interest that exists in this county for democracy and to learn what the candidates have to say. So I'm just really thrilled to be here, and I'm glad you're all here. So I want to start by introducing our panel. First, I want to introduce Brooks DeBose. He is the assistant editor of the Capitol. He is the assistant editor of the Capitol, and he's responsible for directing the coverage of government and politics. Prior to this role, he covered Annapolis city government, and as our mayor is here, covering the 2021 municipal election and winning several regional awards for his work. So applause for him. Thank you. Also like to introduce Charlestine Fairley. Dr. Fairley is the CEO of the Arundel County Community Action Agency. Over a distinguished career, she has been noted for her work in the public health sector, as well as her focus on education as a means to improve the quality of life for at-risk youth and adults. Thank you for joining us. And our final panelist is Dan Nataf. Dan is the professor of political science at Anne Arundel Community College. He directs the Center for Study of Local Issues, which conducts local surveys each semester, including one he just completed and was released earlier this month. So I just want to thank them for joining us on this panel today. So now I'd like to introduce our candidates. First, Jessica Haire, a first-term council member and a Republican challenger. And our county executive, Steuart Pittman, in his first year. He's in his first term, and he is the Democratic nominee. So I want to echo some things that Mark said. Running for office really means airing your beliefs, your soul, and putting it all out there, requiring hours and hours of work, of policy and pressing the flesh and all the things. And it really is something else. Regardless of your thoughts, their positions on the issues, their dedication is truly laudable. And so let's give them a round of applause. So I want to start out by talking about our debate structure. At the beginning, the candidates will have a 3-minute opening statement. Now, originally, I planned on a coin flip, but I forgot to bring a coin. And so we're trying to figure out how to resolve this, and I said, how about rock, paper, scissors? And our two candidates were great at it, and they agreed to it, and it was fantastic, and I loved it. It took a while. It took 3 rounds. So in the COVID era, this is the way we resolve our issues. So, and the winner of that was Jessica, right?
No, Mr. Pittman won
Mr. Pittman won, I'm sorry.
Won the battle, lose the war.
Yes. So Mr. Pittman will give our first opening statements, but let me go through the structure before we get to that. So after we do opening statements, 3 minutes for each, our panelists will ask several questions specific to the candidates. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. The other candidate will have 30 seconds to respond as well. If that response mentions the original candidate will have an opportunity to respond to that. In the second round, we will have some open-ended questions in which both candidates will have the same amount of time, 60 seconds, to answer the question. During this round, I will also ask some questions that were submitted by the public. And then at the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes for a closing statement, starting with Councilwoman Haire, and then finishing with County Executive Pittman. One thing for the candidates in our front row, Mark has moved from the lectern down to the front, where he will be our timekeeper. He will flash a yellow card when you have 15 seconds left. There it is, and his helper there. And then a red card when time is expired. So I'd ask you try to stay within the time as much as you can. I will give you a little bit of latitude, but we have a lot of questions we'd like to ask, and I imagine everybody's patience would thank you to be brief with your answers. So now some things for the audience. We heard your roar and your applause, and that was fantastic. But we do ask during the debate, when they're answering questions, that you hold your applause and your cheers so that they can fully answer the questions. Also ask that you silence your cell phone. So now that we were through that all, we're going to start with the opening statements. County Executive Pittman, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Well, thank you. It is wonderful to be here finally. And I think after 200 town halls, most of you know who I am, so I won't do the bio part of this. But I do want to say that I am from this place. I love this place. And I fight like hell to defend it. So I have defended this county against a deadly virus that has cost our residents, our neighbors, 1,173 lives. I have defended against bad development and won. I have defended against traffic and raised 6 of our top transportation priorities into the state's top 10. And I've defended against racism and hate and created the first Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion despite efforts from 3 council members to defund it. And I've defended against big money in politics, and as long as I hold this office, I will continue that fight for campaign finance reform. But all of my life, I have loved the land, the water, and the people of this county. But it's only over the last 4 years that I have also come to love the institutions of local government that serve and protect the people of this county. I've done 29 budget town halls, and I can tell you that our people want more police, more firefighters, more teachers. They want more schools, more parks, more senior centers, more libraries. And I say this because I'm running in a campaign against a candidate who has spent $1 million on ads saying that it's just too much. So my hope is that tonight we will finally have an opportunity to get into the details of how my opponent seeks to shrink and create a smaller government and defund these institutions, and whether or not it's the right thing for our county. So 4 years ago, I was endorsed by the police, the teachers, and the firefighters, and I'm endorsed by them again because I've been a steadfast advocate for their missions. I was endorsed by the Baltimore Sun saying that I have been fiscally prudent, independent, and good government-oriented. I earned this county its first AAA bond rating from Moody's as a stamp of approval for sound fiscal management. And I got a 6-to-1 bipartisan vote on our last budget for exactly that reason, while keeping our taxes the lowest in the region by far. I earned an A rating from the League of Conservation Voters, while my opponent got a D, because I protected the environment. And tonight, regardless of your political affiliation, I am asking for your support in this election so that we can continue to do the good work that we started 4 years ago.
Councilwoman Haire.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Jessica Haire, and I'm running to be your next county executive to bring proactive, innovative, and efficient government to Anne Arundel County. I am a civil engineer, an attorney, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I'm your neighbor in the county. I'm also a court-appointed special advocate for kids in foster care, where our mission is to help children who've been removed from their homes for abuse or neglect find a safe, permanent place to live and an opportunity to thrive. It has been my honor to serve as the District 7 County Council representative for the last 4 years, where I have worked tirelessly to lower the cost of living for our hardworking families, to remove red tape for our small businesses, and to incentivize the revitalization of aging infrastructure. I've also been proud to partner with communities on sanitary sewer concerns, stormwater issues, erosion and sediment concerns, field lighting issues for teams, safety lighting issues on the roadways, advocating to bury power lines along peninsula roadways so that when we get those high wind storms, we don't see so many storm outages, power outages. Everywhere I go in the county, I've been relentlessly focused on the cost of living, crime, and modernizing county government. Meanwhile, in the last 4 years, the current administration has increased your income taxes by 12%, circumvented the voter-imposed property tax cap, ballooned the budget by over $300 million, far outside the guidelines of our Spending Affordability Committee, and far faster than personal income growth in the county. And yet, everywhere I go, folks in their community don't feel safe. The 2021 annual report from the police department shows a 5.1% increase in violent crime, increases in aggravated assaults. The Gun Violence Task Force shows an increase of 45% in crimes committed with guns over the last 4 years. We have homicide detectives who have to work overtime as crossing guards in the county. And when it comes to education, recent test scores show that only 6%, single digits 6%, of our high schoolers are proficient in algebra and geometry. 25% of our 3rd through 5th graders are proficient in English language arts. We can't even get our kids to school. And the calls to the crisis warm line are climbing significantly. We can do better than this. Together, we can change this trajectory. We can give our police, our public safety officers, the tools, the resources, the training they need to make our communities safer. We can partner with our school system to get dollars in the classroom and get our kids to school so that kids can focus on learning. We can increase access to services for folks in crisis, and we can eliminate the wasteful spending in our budget. We can do this together. We can do better than this. I want to close with one final thing. Mr. Pittman made a number of statements today. I'm looking forward to discussing them more in detail later on, but lately he's taken to calling me an extremist. He's done this on Facebook, he's done this on TV ads, he's done this on a website, I think even via text message. It's funny, it's a little ironic. Anyone who followed the primary, I just spent the last year being called a rhino, so it's a little ironic. But I want to let you all know, I have passed the most number of bipartisan bills of anyone on the county over the last 4 years in the county council. I am proud of my record of common sense, collaboration, consensus building. That's the focus, that's the dedication that I bring to the county executive's office. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to the candidates. We'll be moving to direct questions, and I will remind everyone, I hope you've got your applause and your cheering out of your system, at least till the end. We are already behind schedule, but it's probably to be expected. So if we can just keep it to no applause, and we can give them a big round of applause at the end, that would be great. So thank you. So we're starting with the direct questions, where the questioner, the person being questioned, or the person who the question is being directed to has 90 seconds to respond, and then the other candidate can give a 30-second response to that, and then the rebuttal if necessary. So the first question is going to County Executive Pittman, and will come from Brooks DeBose. Go ahead, Brooks.
Good evening. County Executive Pittman, your administration has led the county through a once-in-a-century pandemic. Some thought your leadership offered proper caution, while others felt the county's mandates of closed businesses and masking went too far. What did you get right, and what would you have done differently in retrospect?
So I knew when I came into this office that there could be a crisis. My father was the guy who did bomb shelters. He was Assistant Secretary of Defense for Civil Defense during the Cold War, and I knew that something like this could happen. First person that I went to is the health officer. He was talking to the state. The governor did his orders. I got on the phone with all of the county executives in the region, and every single week we said, okay, how are we going to deal with this? We did not know just how bad it would be. The state did the first lockdowns. Of course, I had some criticisms of that. What is an essential business and what is not? Then things started to open up, and we had the second wave, and our hospitals were saying they were overwhelmed. They said, we need to continue having people wear masks. There was a period where the only place that you did not wear a mask was a restaurant, and our health officer said, We need to do, for another month, the masking in restaurants. I don't know whether those were the right decisions in retrospect, but I know at the time that we brought our business community together, we brought Democrats and Republicans from the council together, and we made really tough decisions knowing we had two bad options. But the fact that our death rate at the end of all that was 1/2 the death rate of counties in Maryland that did less and that did not take this seriously, our 1,173 could have been double that. So I can sleep at night. I hope we never have to go through this again.
Councilwoman Haire.
So it's interesting, Mr. Pittman talked about bringing Democrats and Republicans together. One of the biggest concerns I had with how everything was handled was that it happened behind closed doors. I couldn't participate in those meetings. I wasn't allowed to. There were no meeting minutes from those meetings. Everything happened behind closed doors. And really, in terms of bringing folks together, Mr. Pittman spent quite a bit of time attacking the governor and then abdicated his authority to the health officer. And the health officer, his duty is to give his opinion from the public health perspective. But we need to be taking input not only from the health officer, but from economic development, from the chambers of commerce, from our small businesses, from our parents. We need to be looking holistically at the impacts to everyone. That didn't happen under Mr. Pittman's watch. We can do better than this.
Do I get out?
You would like a response? Go ahead.
Yes.
A 30-second response, and I should say that the response to these questions is 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yep.
So the incessant efforts by 3 members of our county council to remove the authority that I was granted by the governor to be able to manage this pandemic was irresponsible. We could not have allowed our restaurants to do outdoor dining without waiving the county code because it was an emergency. We could not have protected people from this deadly virus if we didn't have the ability to cut through the red tape of government, and that was authorized by the state of emergency. I did not see my opponent talking about protecting people. What I heard her talking about was getting masks off of people, and I just think that was the wrong approach.
Councilwoman Haire, one last one here, and then
Sure.
we need to move on.
I'm amazed that you brought up restaurants, considering they all had to get together and actually sue the county and get a TRO in the court systems for the restrictions that you put on the restaurants. That you then gave out $500 gift cards and live streamed it, I believe, on Facebook to try and pretend like that was going to make up for it. We as a council tried very, very hard. I started a program, actually, dinner on Jessica and Dirk, where we helped restaurants and folks try and make ends meet. I'm amazed, actually, that you would have brought up the restaurants and all this.
Those $500 gift cards were very important to those workers who got them right before Christmas, and I'm very proud of that program.
I'm sure they loved you live streaming it on Facebook so everyone could see them coming to get them.
And we're off. We're going to move on now to our next question, to Councilwoman Haire from Charlottesville Fairleigh.
Good evening. Councilwoman Haire, your campaign has promised to cut taxes and to enhance services. How will both of these promises be achieved?
Thank you so much for that question. I saw actually a letter to the editor the other day that mentioned this number, $110 million, and how could you possibly do that? So first of all, I want to address the premise of the question, which is essentially there's an assumption there that you can never lower taxes without cutting services. And I reject that premise. Actually, it's interesting. We often ask people when they want to lower taxes, how are you going to do that? How is that possible? And yet when folks want to raise taxes, we don't demand the same amount of accountability. When somebody wants to raise your taxes, I think we should be saying to them, what exactly are you going to use this for? And you need to justify it and be accountable on the back end. And that's what I'm doing. Now, I've proposed lots of ways. Chronic vacancies in the county budget. My Republican colleagues and I have proposed tens of millions of dollars in savings over the last 4 years at the county council. Almost all of those proposed savings have failed on a party line vote. But interestingly enough, looking at the FY22 budget, do you know there was a fund balance at the end of the year, at the end of the FY22 budget, of $110.8 million. That means in FY22, the Anne Arundel County government took $110.8 million of taxpayer funds and didn't use them. There's a lot of waste in this budget, and I am confident that we can find it, we can eliminate it.
That's how we got our AAA bond rating. We put that $110 million into the rainy day fund. You know, I've run businesses and organizations for 35 years, and when you have a good year and you have a surplus, you protect yourself for the future. And so by putting that money into the rainy day fund, and you'll hear that she was one of the 7 who introduced the bill that gave us the authority to go from 5 to 6, but she voted against actually putting the money into the rainy day fund. So setting our county up for future economic challenges, to me, is good government.
Do you want to follow up?
Yes, please. Thank you. I am so glad that you brought up the AAA bond rating. So in 2021, I believe it was Bill 2521, actually, I had a bill. It's one of my most proud accomplishments at the council that raised the ceiling on the rainy day fund. But previously, you could only put 5% into the rainy day fund, and my bill actually raised that level to 6%. And that is one of the reasons that Moody's cited, it's one of the large reasons that Moody's cited for increasing our bond rating in the county. So I love that he always brings that up. I will note that not only did I get unanimous support on that, I was the lead sponsor, I got unanimous support, and then I got unanimous co-sponsorship from my council members. Back to that bipartisan consensus building collaboration I mentioned at the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Just quickly, Moody's did not raise our bond rating because we had the authority to put money in our rainy day fund. They did it because we put the money in our rainy day fund, which you voted against.
No, please, please, please. Let's keep the applause to a minimum, please. The next question will go to County Executive Pittman from Dan Nataf.
Our recent surveys have shown that a majority of the county's residents favor slower residential growth that is in balance with the growth in infrastructure, roads, schools, parks, and the like. On the other hand, slower growth might prevent building of more affordable housing. Which is the greater priority, keeping residential growth slow or allowing greater density and more growth to lower housing costs?
I was not surprised to see that survey result. And the reason that people want slower or no growth, there are some people who want no growth of any kind in the county, is that we have not kept up with the infrastructure or kept up with the services, and they experience it through traffic, and they experience it in overcrowded schools. So when we did Plan 2040 and engaged our residents at record levels in deciding what our future should look like in land use, we all agreed that we needed to target our growth to town centers, areas where we have train stations, areas where people can live, work, and play so they don't get in a car and clog up the roads. And so to say, as my opponent has, the density is bad, automatically bad, is really to say, we don't like the people who live in high-density housing. It's a dog whistle, right? And so we have to do some density in order to protect the open space of this county. We cannot implement our green infrastructure master plan if we don't target our growth and do smart growth. So I believe there's a way forward so that our economy can thrive, but we protect the natural beauty of our county, get cars off of our roads, and keep our schools the best that they can be by building the new ones and having enough teachers to teach our kids.
Councilwoman Haire.
It's not a dog whistle. I am blowing the whistle on your hypocrisy. So let's talk about his policies really quickly. Anybody remember the Wegmans project on Riva Road? We were going to have a redevelopment. It was going to be Wegmans. They were going to come bring 300 jobs with them, paying lots of money for folks in that area. This current administration rejected that proposal, ran Wegmans off, and instead is building 508 apartment units there, luxury condo apartment units, and a parking garage with 793 parking spaces. Oh, and by the way, they're exempt from school capacity. That's hypocritical. We then talk about all of the projects that he's shoved through, all through the county, through the council on party line votes, while giving millions of dollars in tax breaks to out-of-state developers to build the high-density development. We can do better. We can encourage revitalization of aging infrastructure. We can encourage revitalization of properties that are vacant. You know, there was a green notice that came out during this administration that treated old property that had been vacant by more than 3 years as if it were forested. So it's complete disincentive to revitalize and redevelop that property. We need to put plans in place where we are promoting quality infrastructure, promoting revitalization of these areas, but not at the expense of our residents, of the school capacity, and of our roads.
This is very important. I think we need to spend some time on this because, first of all, it is not true that Wegmans was told they couldn't build. Wegmans left when they found out that we had town center plans that were put together by our communities that required there to be mixed use and higher density in that area. So they came in with the suburban proposal for a big box store and a big parking lot. And then when they found out that it didn't comply with the laws, they left. There was no density bonus on the 500. They didn't even meet their density requirements on the development that's being done there. It is by right in this county if you meet the law. And the school capacity changes were done in a previous county council. You could have changed them on the county council. You're on the legislative body, but that was by law as well for the kinds of housing that was being built. So it is exactly the kind of development that we need in town centers where people, there will have public space, there will be a grocery store, there will be office space, commercial, and there will be apartments. We need somewhere. We need somewhere for our kids. I have a daughter who's 32 years old, can't afford to live here. For our parents who want to move into smaller units. For folks who work in this county. We cannot all afford a half an acre lot and a $700,000 house. And if we're gonna support our community and move forward, we've got to say we're gonna support smart growth.
Jessica?
We see this a lot.
Let's keep this to 30 seconds. I think we went a little
Sure.
long on this point, and I agree it's an important point.
Sure. We see this a lot where Mr. Pittman will talk out of both sides of his mouth. So he talks about how on the county council you could have changed this. County executive could have put in legislation to change it too, and his administration is the one that approved the project. I didn't say anything about a density bonus, but there is an exemption for school capacity.
Okay, let's move on, please. The next question will go to Councilwoman Haire from Brooks to Bowes.
Councilwoman, if elected, what would your plan be for the Crownsville Hospital Center acquired by the county earlier this year?
That's a great question. I know this is on a lot of folks' mind. The Crownsville property, it's about, 544 acres, I think. To put it in perspective, I think Central Park is, 842. So this is our chance to really kind of have this green center. We need to do it in a way that pays respects to what happened there in the past, and allows our county to move forward holistically, collaboratively, together. I was looking at some interesting proposals the other day for some agricultural pursuits that might be able to go on there as kind of a wellness and a healing perspective, and I think that's one heck of a proposal. I really liked that one. I will say that the first and foremost, there's a lot of remediation that has to happen there, far more than has been budgeted so far by this county. I've seen estimates as high as I think $80 to $100 million, and I think right now there's only about $30 million in the county budget. So I think there's going to be a number of years first of remediation work, but certainly something that is respectful and honors the memory of what went on there, but moves together in a healing manner.
So this is one of the reasons why I think that it's very important that I stay in this office for the next 4 years. Is this working okay? Yeah. When I came into office, I sat down with Governor Hogan, and he said, what can we do together? First year. And I said Crownsville. Because the legacy of that place and the condition of that place in the geographic heart of our county needs to be controlled by the residents of Anne Arundel County. You all remember the proposal for the commercial, the hotel, the sports stadium that was proposed there. They actually wanted the county to use our bonding authority. The developers of that proposal, major contributors to your campaign, not to mine, but they are still there, and they still want to do that. I believe that by creating the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park, with the help of the $30 million we got from the state, that we're going to be able to bring in nonprofit partners. We're going to get Rec and Parks there. Central Services is already out there. You can see it starting to get cleaned up. We're going to address the legacy of the failure in this country to deal with mental health crisis. And what happens at Crownsville Hospital Center will tell the story, it will tell the history, and we'll have people doing the work for the future. And I believe that it will be a place where we can heal, our whole county can heal in the presence of nature. And I just so look forward to being able to implement the plan now that we've got the property.
Would you like to respond?
Actually, I think this is one of those rare occasions where we might agree on something, so I'm good.
Great. Well, let's celebrate that. Yes. All right, I'll allow that. All right, moving on to the next question. It will go to County Executive Pittman from Brooks to Bowes.
County Executive, your administration says crime is down, and crime statistics show that major offenses continue to decrease and hold steady. But the Anne Arundel Community College survey, released earlier this month, indicates that county residents say crime is the top county issue that they are concerned about. what would you do in a second term to deter crime while making residents feel safer?
Well, it is still a top issue. I mean, the fact that from 2018 to 2021, the last year we have full statistics, every category of crime went down by 10% or more, and you know that, and I think we agree on that. I know that you have 1 year with a blip on violence that you have referenced, but our officers celebrate this reduction in crime, and I've been endorsed by the police officers, I think, because I celebrate them, and we've given them the resources that they need, the staffing levels that they need, and the pay to keep them in our county, and we have to continue to do that, first of all, to address crime. But crime is not only a policing issue. Crime is the health and human service agencies. It's the quality of life. There are social determinants of health. There are social determinants of crime. And if we fail to address those with major cuts to county revenues, then crime will go up. We're doing a 911 call center that we should have done a long time ago. It's been talked about for years and years in this county, but it's in our budget so that we will have a joint center between police and fire. And we have professionalized our Office of Emergency Management, and they will oversee that. We have the best police department, I think, in America. We have the greatest police chief. Chief Amal Awad is beloved by the officers and the community, and she's doing a fantastic job. So if we continue doing the work that we're doing, I think we will continue to push the numbers down.
Councilwoman Haire.
Thank you. So I actually disagree with this premise, in part because the numbers that folks keep referencing, that Mr. Pittman keeps referencing, don't include the city of Annapolis. Imagine if a governor tried to say that crime in the state of Maryland was behaving a certain way, but he wasn't going to include Baltimore City. That wouldn't pass muster. Absolutely not. We have to look at our county as a whole. I mentioned in my opening that crimes committed with guns have increased by 45% over the last 4 years. In 2018, there were 471. In 2021, there were 686. We have a problem. Mr. Pittman agrees we have a problem with crime in the county. In April of this year, he said as much to the Capitol Gazette. Ignoring the problem doesn't fix it. And when you talk to folks in their communities, they don't feel safe. When I say we need to give our police officers, our detention center officers, the tools, the resources, and the training that they need to be able to make our communities safer, I mean that the Joint 911 Center should have been in the first budget, not an election year budget. I mean that we need to prioritize our public safety funding. We lost 30 detention center officers in the last year. Mr. Pittman talks about prioritizing public safety, but he only added 18 sworn officers to the budget in the last 4 years, all while increasing your taxes. The previous administration added 54, and they did it without raising taxes. We can do better than this. It takes 193 days on average right now to hire a detention center officer. We can do better than this. We can streamline this process and take our recruitment to higher levels so that we can train and give these officers, both police, fire, and detention center, the tools and the resources that they need.
Just to be clear, putting officers in a budget does not get them on the street. So when I came in, we were under 700 sworn officers. We got to 800, over 100 more. It changes every week. I think by the end of this year, we'll be back at 800. We're just below that. But I want to say something about gun violence, because gun violence is the violent crime that we're talking about. Most of the major crimes and the homicides are done with guns. And we created the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force because we needed at the local level to address it. We put it into the Department of Health, called it a health crisis. And we created the first gun violence intervention team modeled after our opioid intervention team. And that organization is doing great work. And it's a very different approach than putting out mailers with a picture of you shooting a shotgun right after Uvalde shooting. Really scaring and offending the voters of the county.
Talk about fear-mongering. I do want to quickly address this number, 700 and 800. Actually, it was reported just the other day, I believe, and meanwhile in Annapolis. In 2018, we had 725 sworn officers on the payroll. Currently, we have 756. By my math, that's a difference of 31. I don't know how you round, but nowhere do you get 100 out of that.
You look at the police actual report, the annual reports from the police department. I'll show them to you. They're on my phone later.
All right. Thank you. I had a feeling that one would be a spirited back and forth. So, moving on, the next question goes to County Councilwoman Haire from Brooks DeVos.
Councilwoman Haire, your opponent has promised he will create a public financing system for political candidates using county funds, which you opposed. How would you go about getting big money out of local politics?
So the county executive proposed this public financing to the county council, and it failed because the state board of elections came and told us it could cost the taxpayers as much as $8 million. That's a lot of money. You all shouldn't have to foot the bill for the public financing campaign. There's a lot of things we can do with $8 million. Mr. Pittman promised that he would put forth a bill to eliminate spending and eliminate campaign contributions from folks with business before the council in his 2018 campaign. He never introduced that legislation. So he's made that promise before. He's already broken it. I don't expect him to keep it next time either.
So let me get to that second bill. It was not people before the council. It was developers. It was banning campaign contributions from developers with applications pending before the county. We had to go to the state to get authorization to do that, and we won that. We came back, we drafted the bill, we shopped it around the council. I would have been lucky to get 2 votes and made a decision that I did not want to just put a bill forth to watch it fail just to make a point. I will continue that effort with the next county council, who I hope will be more sympathetic to it. The campaign finance bill that my opponent voted against, we passed 4-3, but you needed 5 votes to be able to get it onto the ballot. So this was creating a system like the one that Larry Hogan used to win the governorship in his first election, where you can choose to get only small dollar contributions, and then they get matched from a county fund. Many counties have this. It's a small dollar option for people, and it's actually a $2 million price tag that we estimate, and I think it's worth $2 million to get big money out of politics and allow regular people to run for office.
Quick response.
So Mr. Pittman mentioned that he shopped this bill around the county. This would be another one of those times where he's saying one thing but doing another. He might have shopped it around to a couple members on the county council. He didn't show it to me in advance. I didn't get a chance to look at this as this potential. And you know, not only that, you're saying it's a $2 million price tag now. We had evidence from other counties in Maryland that have looked at this, and the range was anywhere from $5 million to $11 million, I believe. And so the State Board of Elections said it could be as much as $8 million for this county. I still stand by. We are the final fiscal authority for your tax dollars. You work hard for your money, and we should not be taking $8 million of your money to fund political campaigns.
But you do agree that this was to put it on the ballot for the voters to decide whether they wanted to invest in this? This was not the council's decision. This was to put this question to the voters in this election. You voted against that.
I did.
Please, please, please. All right, let's move on. So we're moving on to our second round, where we're asking more generic questions to both candidates, and each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. So I think we got a little off our rails in the first round with our timing, and I think part of that may have been miscommunication.
No.
We're having fun, yes. Everyone having fun? Yes. Okay, yeah. I'll allow it now, yeah. All right, so we're going to start the second round. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond, so let's try to keep to it if we can. The first question will come from Charlestine Fairley to Councilwoman Haire.
Thank you. Arundel County Community Action Agency is the county's designated anti-poverty organization and is required to conduct a needs assessment every 3 years. Our most recent needs assessment, conducted in 2021, indicated that the top 3 needs among the individuals and families we serve are, number 1, affordable child care, number 2, affordable housing, number 3, employment earning a livable wage. How would your administration address these needs?
So I think we can do a number of things here. And actually, first and foremost, I think one of the options we have and one of the opportunities we have is really actually on the employment side of things. From a county perspective, we need to audit our departments. We have a lot of barriers to entry for folks that really probably are not necessary, certain educational requirements that don't necessarily make any sense. I think actually we can make our own county government and the employment that comes with it more accessible to folks by providing those opportunities. I think we need to look at expanded opportunities for apprenticeships countywide. I was just talking with the detention center officers about this actually, and making that a real opportunity for folks. In terms of affordable housing, I think one of the big things that we can do is help folks get into that first home with various programs, property tax credits, things like that, that help them get to that first rung, that first level, whether it be a condo or a home. Oh, and I think my time is up. Thank you. Trying to be respectful of the time.
County Executive Pittman, you have 60 seconds.
60 seconds, okay.
60 seconds for each side here, so
Okay,
yes.
same question.
Yes.
Yeah, childcare, housing, and wages. So childcare is absolutely essential to get folks into the workforce who have kids, obviously, and we have a huge shortage, and we lost a lot during COVID, childcare centers. I've talked to economic development about helping the new entrepreneurs, and there will be opportunity with the blueprint because we have pre-K for kids that's going to be opening up, and there will be state funding for that as well. And those pre-K organizations can be private, and they can do childcare as well. So we're having economic development look at some of our vacant retail space and parking lots that can become playgrounds, and helping young entrepreneurs get into that business. The Anne Arundel County child care program has been difficult to staff, and this gets to wages. In order to do livable wages, the county must lead. I have been working to get to the point where nobody gets paid below $15 an hour in the county. We're almost there, and we just bumped up all of our child care workers in the county to 15, and it made it possible for them to do some major recruitment over the summer. On housing, we created a new housing trust fund. It's money that we've got $10 million out of our federal funds that we've seeded this new pot with. But we can't stop doing what we've always been doing in this county, which is the payment in lieu of taxes that I know you voted against, but these are tax breaks for these working families when they live in housing that is supposed to be for working families.
I gave him a little extra time, so is there anything you'd like to add, Councilwoman
Sure,
Haire?
I'll just mention on those pilot programs, these big developers get these tax breaks over the course of 40 years, millions of dollars in some cases, and that tax break is actually passed on to you as the resident, because when the county maximizes the tax cap, all that does is shift that burden onto the residents. So in many cases, that's millions and millions of extra dollars, $20 million over the next 40 years that Anne Arundel County residents will have to bear.
And I was astounded. I was astounded that actually 3 members of the council would vote no on this tax relief for working families when they campaign on tax relief. We do tax relief for veterans, we do tax relief in all kinds of ways, tax relief for seniors, and to stop doing what Republicans have been doing in this county for decades, is these payment in lieu of taxes. It was a move to the right so far that I just felt like they were trying to stop those kind of people from living in our county.
County Councilwoman Haire, would you like to respond to that? I feel like you have an opportunity. If you'd like to respond to that, you may.
The fear mongering coming out of that side, it's unfortunate that we can't just discuss the local issues. Nobody's stopping anybody from living here.
Please. Thank you. All right, so we're moving on now. Our next question is one of the questions that was submitted at capitalgazette.com. It comes from Crofton's Spencer Jones, who is also the president of Chicken Ruth's Deli in Annapolis. County Executive Pittman, you will be the first to answer this question, but both of you will have 60 seconds for it. His question is, what have you done in your current role, or what do you plan to do over the next 4 years to cut unnecessary red tape for small business owners?
I am glad that question is there. So, we know, and I as a person who was a farmer fighting like hell to get the permitting requirements removed from barns, and we actually won on a lot of that it is really hard to do business in this county. And I had a series of meetings organized through economic development with small businesses around the county, and we talked about that. So we've created the Land Use Navigator, which will hold the departments accountable so that you can see when the permits were applied for in every step of the way, whether they've been delayed for whatever reason. But we're going to have to do a total code rewrite on land use, and we're going to bring in an outside consultant to look at how we are compared to other counties. Why is it so hard to get permits to do business in this county? And that, to me, is we have the team in place, the battle-tested team, to pull this off. And I think with the next county council, working with a term-limited county executive, who they will not need to attack, we can all work together and actually reform the permitting process.
Councilwoman Haire.
I want to talk actually quickly about two bills that I'm very proud of. The first is with respect to farmers. It used to be in the county that if a farmer wanted to put up a produce stand on its property, they actually had to submit a whole site development plan to the county, which of course is a bit absurd. And folks want to be able to buy directly from farmers, and it's a benefit for farmers to be able to sell directly to residents. So I worked with our farming community and actually corrected that portion of the code, was able to get unanimous support on the council to get rid of that red tape for our farmers, which was a huge success. I was very excited about that unanimous support. The second bill I want to touch base on actually just happened this summer. It was a bill on our small business nurseries that grow plants and flowers. Unfortunately, I was approached by a mom and pop place in District 6 that actually was having a devil of a time because they are growing plants in containers instead of in the ground. And believe it or not, this administration was suing them for an injunction to stop them from doing that. So we went in, we investigated, we modernized the code. I put in legislation that would say it is okay to grow your plants in containers, not just in the ground. And I was successful in not only getting unanimous support on that piece of legislation, but unanimous co-sponsorship for the second time on the county council. I've talked with a couple of those folks who had those lawsuits going on, and to my understanding, they've been dismissed now that the legislation is effective, and I'm really proud of making a difference for those small businesses.
A quick response.
Do I get to respond to the part about the lawsuit at least?
Please, please, please.
The charge that our administration was suing these folks for growing pots and plants. There were complaints against a couple of these operations, not for that at all, in fact. It was for doing landscaping on those sites. So when the councilwoman brought forth a bill, we strengthened that bill. We all worked together on the council. We got a 7-0 vote so that it would address the real problems for these organizations. But of course, it is absurd to require them to grow their plants on the land and not in pots, and that was never the major issue in this.
The next, please. The next question will come from Dan Nataf. Councilwoman Haire will be the first to answer. Go ahead, Dan.
School start times were changed, but have the children in the community benefited from this change? Our survey found that more people thought that traffic congestion in the morning, after school activities, and managing childcare had gotten worse rather than better with new start times. So what's your take on the change in school start times?
The council actually passed a resolution on a supermajority vote asking them to delay the school start times. There's not enough bus drivers to cover the routes. We don't have enough crossing guards to keep kids safe crossing folks. And the traffic has been horrendous. I drive down Riva Road every day and pass that traffic and look at the site that might have been a Wegmans and wonder what the traffic is going to be like next year. And so, I think, we asked them to delay it. The school board did not do it. I think we have a lot of work to do on getting our kids to school and making sure our kids are not left behind so that they can focus on learning.
So the school start times was the question, not the bus drivers. Okay. So I also sent a letter to the school board and met with them opposing implementing the school start times this year. The impact was on bus drivers who get fewer hours because of the compression in the time, so it's made the bus driver shortage more severe. There were also impacts on our child care centers run by Rec and Parks and on crossing guards. Both of them have stepped up and really accelerated their hiring. But we do have to accept that it is the Board of Education and the superintendent that make decisions for the school system. And once we accept that, then we work with them collaboratively. I work with them collaboratively. I'm a huge fan of our new superintendent, Dr. Bedell, who only came in August 8th. That decision had been made. He had to accept it. We all have to accept it. I hope that there will be a benefit for the students, and we have to address these labor issues, and these are throughout our economy, and these are crises that we must confront together as a community. So I am working with our Board of Education and with our superintendent to solve these problems together.
Great, thank you. The next question will go to County Executive Pittman first, and it will come from Charlestine Fairley.
County Executive Pittman, what will you do to address youth gun violence in the county?
So I mentioned the gun violence intervention team, and it is made up of our police department, our mental health agencies, our Health and Human Service agencies, our Office of Emergency Management, and the school system. One of the things in the past that was difficult was that the school system and Anne Arundel County's mental health agencies did not communicate. So we created a new joint commission on mental health with the school system. And they have created new programs. They have opened up the schools so that our mental health folks can get into them and work together. And we will continue to get the reports from them, create the new programs, fund the new programs, and monitor progress. My sister teaches at Annapolis High School, and it's sad to hear the stories about some of the mental health challenges that the kids are facing. And if we continue to collaborate interagency like we have started to do finally, and work with our state partners and our federal partners, we can make real progress and continue to educate people about gun safety as well.
Councilwoman Haire.
So I think we absolutely need to partner with our federal and state allies to help get illegal guns off the street. We need to have those programs in place to make sure that these guns are not falling into the hands of youth. I also think on our mental health, we need better access to crisis services. I've been proud to advocate for increased access to resources and increased numbers of crisis beds in the county during my time on the council. This question was posed in 2018 as well during the campaign, and I wrote a letter to the editor then talking about the increase in mental health services that we needed to be able to provide. Our youth have been through a really traumatic time the last couple of years. We see it in the learning loss, we see it to the calls on the crisis warm line, and I think we're going to see the ramifications of what they had to endure over the last few years for many years to come. So I think this is going to be an all hands on deck, and it's really going to need to be everyone working together, parents, schools, mental health resources, all collaboratively.
Great. Our next question is one of our submitted questions. It's from Leah Paley, who is also the CEO of the Anne Arundel Food Bank. It will go to Councilwoman Haire first. Here is the question. The influx of COVID funding from the federal government has enabled many nonprofit organizations to meet the heightened demand of human services over the last 2.5 years. With this funding running out and no commitment from the federal government to provide another round of relief, what will you do to ensure that nonprofits can continue to meet the high demand for services in our county?
First of all, they do tremendous work at the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. I've been privileged to visit there and do some volunteer efforts there, and they really do tremendous work. All of our nonprofits do tremendous work. I think the best way that the county can partner with folks on a lot of these things is through public-private partnerships. And we've done this a few times on the council, where particularly if we have space, buildings, or land, or that nature, where a nonprofit can come in and use them, we can rent space to them for $1 a year, and that really lowers their overhead costs, gives them the ability to thrive and grow their business. Obviously I would love to talk specifically with the food bank and any other nonprofit who's interested in expanding, because I think that's a service that more and more people have needed, particularly as we see inflation and cost of living kind of spiraling out of control. I hear from folks every day that the cost of living is too high, and the number of people who are able to donate to the food bank is dwindling, and the number of people who need the food bank is dramatically increasing.
County Executive Pittman.
So the question was partly about the fiscal cliff being created by the end of the federal funding. And I can assure you that we invested those dollars in one-time projects rather than recurring, so that we wouldn't put the county in a difficult situation financially. But there's a fair amount of that money that went to local nonprofit organizations and went to health and human service agencies, and I think that's what the food bank is nervous about. They were central to the food distribution system that we created with our churches, our nonprofits, county government, and the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. The nonprofit sector in Anne Arundel County is absolutely essential. That's why we just put another $1 million into the Community Foundation for small grants for our local nonprofits. I believe that the amount of money that we're talking about that we've invested of that federal money into these nonprofits and food assistance in particular, we cannot afford to stop doing, but that we can afford to continue it. Because overall, compared to some of the other things we spend money on, it's affordable. We can get it done. So we'll be there for you.
Great. So our next question will come from Brooks DeVos, and it'll go to County Executive Pittman first to answer. Brooks?
County Executive, there has been a long-term effort by an outside developer to build a rubble landfill in Odenton. That has caused a strong opposition by a group of community organizations in that area, This is a question for you both. Do you support the project?
I do not support the project. I've been hearing about this. They've been trying to get, Haire Development has been trying to get the Chesapeake Terrace rubble landfill into the county for 30 years. And it came to me because they were trying to get their permit from the Maryland Department of the Environment. And we had an opportunity to finally put a stop to it, at least for now, which is we bought the land that was the only land under their special exception that they could use to get into where they want to put this rubble landfill right next to Two Rivers, close to Odenton, close to Crofton, trucks on the road everywhere. We bought that land for a school. And so what we then did was I went to the Maryland Department of Environment, wrote a letter saying, don't give them the permit because they'll never get our permit. And they sued me for that. They came after me. So Maryland Department of Environment may give them the permit. Our legal team believes that we can fight to keep them from going in from another entrance. They believe that our legal team will back down and that they'll get another entrance. And I think that is why they invested $250,000 in trying to acquire a new county executive with $6,000 contributions from their staff, their family, people who none of them live in the county, and from their employees. So other county council candidates have been offered checks from Haire Development and sent them back. I think the community was right to call on Councilwoman Haire to send back the $250,000.
Please. Come on. Councilwoman Haire, your response.
Thank you. I am so glad I get a chance to answer this question in front of you all. So first of all, Mr. Pittman never actually asked me my position on the landfill. I'm so glad you did. I'm going to say it loud and clear. I'm opposed to the landfill. Let me say it one more time. I'm opposed to the landfill.
Come on.
Okay? If there's any doubt from anybody, I'm opposed to the landfill. You know what, Mr. Pittman, he made a whole lot of assumptions and he made a whole lot of attacks and he never bothered to actually ask me. That's not what leadership is about. So then let me tell you a little bit more about this. This first came up because he started to attack me about it, and he did it at a series of community summits. These are taxpayer-funded community summits that he's using as political rallies to attack me in his opening statement that is wildly unethical. What's more, Mr. Pittman just talked about how this administration has stopped it by purchasing the land that was supposed to be the entrance from the school. Well, do you know what? Land purchases from the advanced land acquisition actually have to come before the council for a vote. I voted for the land purchase. So for him to sit here and talk out of both sides of his mouth and say, I must be promoting the landfill, but also I voted for the purchase of the property that he claims stopped it, is absurd.
Yep. Let's try to keep a response to 30 seconds.
The reason that I didn't ask you how you felt about the landfill is because when the Chamber of Commerce held a candidate forum right before the primary not that long ago, you said you had only heard about the landfill 2 days before. So you clearly couldn't have had an opinion about something that you had never heard about. When you say you voted in favor of acquiring the school site, that was before that. So you clearly didn't know about the landfill at that point. I don't believe you didn't know about the landfill. I believe you did know about the landfill because why would they have given you $250,000? But
okay, so which is it?
Please, Councilwoman Haire.
You can't have it both ways. Either I knew about the landfill or I didn't. And if I knew about it, I voted for the land purchase. But then you don't believe that I didn't know about it. Now let me just be real clear on this too. The community groups actually sent a PIA in for my emails and my Google Calendar and my text messages and hard copy files. And actually, unlike most of the PIAs in the county that goes to the county executive's office, we responded to this one timely. And they PIA'd the email. They went through thousands of my emails. And the response that came back, they wanted to know if I had had any conversations about a landfill with the 42 individuals and a million other folks. They sent all these search terms in. Office of Law did a thorough search of my office, my email, my computer files, everything. And the response is, no responsive documents exist. Let me be clear one more time. I am opposed to the landfill. Thank you.
And nobody communicates with their campaign donors on their government accounts. So there were 5 emails about the landfill showing that you knew about it, but they were not with your donors because you don't use your campaign account to talk to donors.
They came from Crofton first. They were updates generally about county stuff.
Okay.
Then I voted, okay.
We good?
We're good.
Yeah, let's move on. I'll second the motion of the man in the first row here. Moving on. The next question will come from Charlestine Farrelly. We'll go to Councilwoman Haire first. Go ahead, Chair Listine.
Yes. There are opposing views regarding the existence of climate change. What is your view? To the extent you believe climate change exists, what will your administration do to mitigate the consequences of climate change in Anne Arundel County?
So I think one of the biggest things that we can be helpful on is our local infrastructure. I talked a little bit in my opening about helping folks with stormwater and flooding issues. As a civil engineer, I did a lot of design work actually on stormwater issues. And you know, I've been able to go into communities and help get check valves inserted in culverts when tidal flooding has been mixed with our increasing severity of storms, and actually been able to help then lessen the effects of those floodings. I, again, have advocated for the burying of power lines, particularly along peninsulas, which are particularly prone to high wind storms and power outages that result from those high wind storms, high frequency storms. I think we need to be, I've worked with folks when their swales are building up to get check dams put in the swales as well. Overall, I think we need to be looking at the county on a whole from a flooding perspective and engineering solutions. I would love to work more on managed aquifer recharge, particularly with all of the excess stormwater that we're seeing. I think there's a lot of really cool, innovative ideas that we can be proactive about moving forward.
County Executive Pittman.
So I do believe that climate change is caused by human beings and greenhouse gas emissions, which is why did an executive order to get all of our fleet 100% electric, and another executive order to get all of our county electric usage either purchased or created renewable by the year 2030. But the impacts in a county with 533 miles of coast are a major, major crisis and concern, the sea level rise and storm surges in particular. So we created the first independent resilience authority in the state of Maryland, one of the first in the country. We funded it in our budget with $500,000 to start hiring the staff. There were only 4 votes to do it, which surprised me. I thought everybody on the council would have agreed that we needed a resilience authority. It's going to put us at the top of the heap to be able to get federal and state funds because we were a leader, and the board of the Resilience Authority has just been seated, and we're just getting to work. We have a plan that identifies the low-lying parts of our county that are most vulnerable, and it's time to start getting to work and addressing them. So I look forward to that in the second term.
Great. Moving on, our next question will come from Brooks DeBose, and County Executive Pittman will take the first question.
According to the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation, more than 80% of county businesses have fewer than 10 employees. Do you think the county is welcoming to small businesses, and how will you ensure small business owners continue to have opportunities?
I do think it's welcoming to small business owners, and our economic development team is second to none in Anne Arundel County. And I'm very clear that most of them are very small. When I did this series we did dinners around the county. I think we did 6 or 7 of them with economic development. And we invited particularly the emerging businesses. And we've created a new program called the Inclusive Ventures Program. And it's gotten so much attention that we've doubled the number of cohorts each year. And it's a group of small business owners, existing businesses, who meet with each other and support each other. They get small grants, and they get training in hiring, in budgeting, in the legal aspects of their work, in permitting, and we're going to continue to grow that program and continue to grow our economic development team so that they can help with permitting processes and just be the support system for our small businesses, and we have to continue that work.
Thank you. I think we have a long way to go, actually, to help our small businesses out. One of the reasons why I've had so many bills on trying to remove red tape for our small businesses is because I hear a lot from folks that say, this shouldn't be this hard, right? What am I doing wrong? How can we do this? I think we can have a lot of programs come in that would make meaningful differences to folks. We can offer property tax credits to new small businesses trying to enter into the county. We can offer expedited permitting for our small businesses when they're trying to expand. We can offer additional partnerships with expanded opportunities for liaisons to help people navigate the system that is all of the complicated grant applications. Our Economic Development Corp does a wonderful job, but I think that as a county government, we really can be doing a lot more to attract and retain these small businesses and help them navigate that process. I look forward to doing that.
Thank you. So our next question will come from Dan Nataf. Councilwoman Haire, you will be the first to answer. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, when we did the survey, we asked the public to comment on 2 different ideas about what the school systems should be doing. One idea was to make sure that parents have enough say in the education of their children. The other idea was teaching about diversity in a fair and balanced way. So in terms of your perception of the school system, has it found a good balance between teaching or imparting these 2 imperatives?
I was going to say, I don't see those two as mutually exclusive. I see them working in tandem. I think there's always room. We can always improve our partnerships with parents. I think studies have shown that when parents are involved in their children's education, the children thrives. I think the same is true when children have good coaches and good mentors that they have. I think most teachers welcome a good partnership with parents, and I think most parents welcome a good partnership with the teachers. I think my number one priority for school systems is that everyone has a safe, welcoming, warm environment so that they're really focused on learning. So.
County Executive Pittman.
So as somebody who believes in community engagement, of course I believe in parental engagement in the schools as well. And I think there's more opportunity for that than ever in the past. There's more transparency about what the kids are learning. It's online and they can get that information. So I encourage people, and I know that our school system is always encouraging parents to get more involved in the schools. Not every parent has the time to do that. Some work 2 and 3 jobs and can't, or they're single parents. As far as what's taught in terms of history and race, I think you're trying to get at in some of this, I firmly believe that we need to teach all of our kids all of our history, and that includes the history of racism in our county and nationally. And there's a concern that some kids will be made to feel guilty if they learn that, and I just don't believe that. I think that our kids want to know all of the history. They are far more inclusive than we are in our generation, and we should give them the benefit of the doubt and not try to censor what they see and what they read.
Thank you, please. All right, our next question will come from Charlesine Fairley. County Executive Pittman, you will be the first to answer.
In terms of public safety and trust between members of the community and law enforcement, residents now have the capability of filming, and county police now wear body cameras. Do you believe this to be a contributor or deterrent in building trust between the police and the community? If yes, why? If not, why not?
Definitely a contributor. I came in my first year, and I said that I thought that Anne Arundel County needed to get into the 21st century and do body-worn cameras, as many jurisdictions already have. And the first year, there was some reluctance to spend the money on the council, so we waited. But during that time, a letter-writing campaign started. It was the NAACP Youth Chapter, actually, and they did hundreds of letters that were heartfelt. But at the same time, I was talking to our Fraternal Order of Police and our police officers, and they were saying, you know, change can be difficult, but every jurisdiction that's done it, the police officers love it once they get it. So in that second year, the whole county council, bipartisan, 7-0, I think the Republicans even put out a press release saying, we support body cameras. So we were celebrating that, got it done fast and did an excellent program. And I talked to a lot of officers, and they tell me that they actually watch these films and they learn from them and they improve their work. And I think for people who don't trust police officers when they're pulled over at night, the fact that that officer has a body-worn camera gives them a certain sense that this is a transparent engagement. And so I think I'm pleased that the state of Maryland is requiring it for the whole state now, and that Anne Arundel County got ahead of it and really has the best body-worn camera in the state of Maryland. We're training other jurisdictions in how to do it right.
Councilwoman Haire?
I absolutely think it's a contributor. We did pass the body-worn cameras on the 7-0 vote. I think it does give both folks a comfort level with any interaction that goes on. And I think, you know, I talk about accountability. I think it does. It makes both parties be accountable for their actions. I think absolutely. I've heard from folks in the community and folks on the police force that they are very grateful for the body-worn camera program. And I think I'm glad we did it, and I'm glad that it's being helpful to the community.
Great. Our next question is a question that was submitted by many respondents, so we have edited it to get the opinion of most of the people who asked about this. There is a vocal group of residents who are concerned about Greensbury Point. What is your view on an acceptable solution for this issue? Councilwoman Haire, you will be first to answer.
Sure. I like it with the passive trails, the passive recreation. I think it's beautiful. It's open, it's accessible. I don't think it needs to change. I know that right now they've withdrawn and who knows, they're going back to the drawing board, but I absolutely think that preserving that, it's a unique gem, it's a unique area, and I think keeping it as passive recreation is the perfect way to handle that.
Well, I've been pretty vocal about this, but I will say that the decision that we made to send a letter to the Navy, that we were open to the possibility, we would put in a proposal for Rec and Parks to manage that site, was the right thing to do. I was very concerned about the relationship between the Naval Academy, who most of us love having them here, I love having them here, and the community. When they made a proposal that they were going to do a golf course on a place that was currently public water access, that people walk their dogs, it's a beautiful, beautiful, very natural space. And so I was concerned that the relationship would be strained if they continued to push that. I called the superintendent. I called 3 people at the Naval Academy, in fact, to tell them that we were going to be sending this letter because I didn't want it to be perceived as anti-Naval Academy. I don't believe that the Academy itself has a dog in this fight. I believe that the golf folks are interested in having another golf course, of course, but I don't believe it will happen. We already lease, Rec and Parks leases the Navy Dairy Farm from the Navy, and we have a model, we have a contract that we could just put over at Greenbury Point, and we can make that place better, deal with the invasive species, and make it just the most wonderful, natural place for the community to be able to experience the Chesapeake Bay.
Great, thank you. The next question will come from Dan Nataf. County Executive Pittman will be the first to answer.
When we did our last survey, we open-ended a question asking people what was a living wage and what was affordable housing. This question has to do with the latter, affordable housing. So the number that came out was $1,500 a month for either rent or mortgage. And we also asked them how much would a house sell for that would be affordable. That number was $350,000. All right, so the challenge is what are the policies that you can implement to try to bring more people into affordable housing, especially if they're poor and they just don't have the money to buy a house?
Yeah, this is one of the most challenging questions that we face because we know that decent, affordable housing is the most important thing for families and for children when we look at things like kindergarten readiness and lack of trauma in that early childhood age. So the numbers that the public came up with aren't far off from the numbers in the Poverty Amidst Plenty report that you might have noticed just came out. They tell us who is living on the edge, who is overpaying. 30% of your income is supposed to be affordable. And if you're a renter, more than half of renters in this county at moderate income levels are paying almost 50% and sometimes higher of their income on rent. So in order to address it, there are a number of things. We need to actually produce more smaller units. We need to amend our zoning code to allow some of those smaller units. We've actually been looking at the prospect of a tiny home community with wraparound services. We, during COVID, had transitional housing in a hotel. We didn't even talk about where it was because we knew that people would target it and complain about it. So we've acquired an apartment building to provide transitional housing with wraparound services. Time's up, sorry.
Yep.
I just finally noticed that you've been doing that.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Haire.
Thank you. I think this question is actually multifaceted, and we need to be innovative and think not just in the form of housing, but also other aspects of someone's life. I mentioned earlier on the employment side of things, trying to offer these apprenticeships, trying to make sure we have partnerships so that we can get folks into employment that offer them that living wage. And so starting that out, apprenticeships in our high school programs and things of that nature can be a big help there. I also think, I had a bill early on in the council to allow folks to give discounts to public safety officers, to teachers, et cetera. Unfortunately, it failed on a party line vote, but those are ways that we can kind of incentivize in the private sector and allow folks to give these discounts to people and get them in. I mentioned property tax credits for folks who are trying to get their first home. That's definitely a way that the county can be helpful in getting people in. Many times people can say, okay, I can make that monthly payment, but I can't do the closing costs. I can't come up with that down payment. I can't come up with that first part. We can be helpful there. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can do it if we're innovative and we think outside the box.
So we are running out of time here. It's 8:23 by my clock here. I think it's pretty accurate. I'm going to ask one simple question that was submitted by Christy Fisher from Millersville. Seems like a very appropriate question for these days, and it could be a simple one-word answer. Will you accept the results of this election?
Yes. Yes.
Jessica Haire.
Yes.
Yes, a simple yes. County Executive Pittman.
Absolutely, but I do want to let people know. I'm not saying maybe. I'm saying that this has not been covered in our local press. But our Board of Elections in Anne Arundel County, despite the state ruling that they can count the mail-in ballots before the election so that they can have results on election night or close to it, will not start counting. They made a decision, 3 members of the board who felt like they wanted to go with the Dan Cox position on this. Anne Arundel County will not count its mail-in ballots until starting the Thursday after the election. And then they will do a second day of counting the following Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, till they're done. So we won't know the results right away, is my point. But we will accept them
Yes.
whenever they come.
Great. All right, so we're going to finish with the 3-minute closing statements. Jessica Haire, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for spending your evening here with us tonight. Look, if we've learned anything over the last 4 years, it's that local leadership matters. So I hope after you've listened tonight, and I hope when you go to the polls, I hope you ask yourself a few questions and think about now versus a few years ago. Is your life more affordable? Do you feel safer in your community? Do you feel like your kids and your grandkids are getting a better education now? Most importantly, do you feel like your government is working with you and for you? Or are you ready for a change and proactive common sense leadership? Because this November, you can elect someone who's been relentlessly focused on local issues and solving community problems, revitalizing aging infrastructure, cutting red tape for our small businesses, or you can choose the status quo. Higher taxes, inefficient government, and a lot of excuses for why things aren't getting done. Because this election, it's not about party politics. It's not about Democrats. It's not about Republicans. It's not about independents. It's about all of you. It's about all of us. It's about our communities and ways that we can do better together. My mom taught me the concept of hard work early on in life. She's a pretty incredible woman. She grew up in a tenement house, got a merit scholarship to college, and put herself through medical school by joining the military. So I was born on an Air Force base. And when I was really young, I'm one of 5, my mom worked multiple jobs to give us an easier life than she had. And childcare was expensive. So that meant oftentimes kids went to work with mom. And on Wednesday nights, she'd pick me up from kindergarten, she'd pick my little sister up from preschool, and she brought 2 things with her. She brought crayons and sleeping bags. And she'd take us to the night clinic where she worked, and she would park us in an exam room. And you know that crinkly paper that makes a terrible noise in a doctor's office when you sit on it? It makes a phenomenal coloring book. And so we would sit there for hours and color until we got tired and we'd roll out our sleeping bags and fall asleep. She'd pack us up at the end of the night, she'd take us home. She did this every week until she saved up enough money to open her own medical practice. And she taught me then this concept of hard work. Hard work leads to limitless opportunities. If you're willing to put in the effort, you can create the opportunities. It's a lesson I've kept with me my whole life. It's a lesson my husband and I try and teach our children now, and it's what makes this country such an incredible place to grow up. We can do better together. I live by the guiding principles of common sense, of working together. I have a deep love for this country. I have a deep appreciation for hard work, and I have a deep commitment to improving the lives of Anne Arundel County residents through common sense, innovation, and efficiency. I promise logic. I promise thoughtfulness. I promise to bring accountability to the local government. And more than anything, I promise that every individual, every resident, every family, every small business will know that I'm invested in our shared success as a community. I thank you so much for your time this evening. I will stick around for any other questions that weren't asked, if you have any more, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Haire. County Executive Pittman, 3 minutes to you.
So I'll be fairly brief. If there's more information that you want, you can go to pittmanforpeople.com, and there are a dozen issues and everything we've accomplished, and you can get real nerdy on all of that. But, I look back after 4 years in this job, and I kind of compare it to my old job as a horse farmer, and there are some similarities. A lot of hard work, a lot of listening, and a lot of horse manure, I'll say, because my mother's watching on the live stream. My point is that politics gets really ugly around election time, and we all get tired of it and can't wait for it to be over. But this job is not a political job. This is a management position overseeing 40 departments, a $2 billion budget. And when I look at the skills that I brought to this job that have come in handy for me and helped me, it's the things that you do in 35 years of running businesses and organizations. It's putting a budget together and sticking to it. It's meeting the payroll. And it's providing quality goods and services. So the team that you put together and surround yourself with, however, in a position like this, is really what makes or breaks you. And I can tell you that the team that we have today, both our department heads, our cabinet, and in the county executive's office, is a battle-tested, hard-working, brilliant team of public servants. And we know what we need to do to make government function more efficiently, to reform our permitting processes, to reform our personnel processes so we can keep up with the private sector and fill our vacant positions. We're ready to do that. And my only request of you tonight is to continue to engage with us, as you have over the last 4 years, and to keep this team and me in the job so that we all together can continue to make Anne Arundel County the best place for all.
All right, thank you, County Executive Pittman. And on behalf of the Capitol, the Anne Arundel Chamber of Commerce, the Maryland Hall of Creative Arts, for making this great facility available to us, I'd like to thank County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Haire for joining this spirited debate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I would like to thank our panelists and all of you who have joined us for this evening. If anyone wants to see a replay of this debate, you'll see it. It was streamed live on capitalgazette.com, and that video will be available. Continue to go to our website for coverage, and thank you for coming. And remember, go vote. Good evening.